G'day, Bomber fans. We've got a VFL recap, and what a game that was, by the way. It looked ugly early. Frankston kicked out to a 29-0 point lead at quarter time, or margin at score at quarter time. The inside 50 count was 22-2. So yeah, that tells you what the first quarter was like. It was brutal. But then I thought the Bombers fought back. We made it a tough contest. There was real spirit. Fought till the end. But yeah, went down by a kick. Awesome game of footy, but another slow start costing the Bombers the story of our season. Now keep that in mind, by the way, with some of the performances here. The forwards, most notably, because the ball was just living away from the forward line. And more than half this team was full of forwards. We actually only had 7 AFL listed players in this game because Oscar Smart and Kale Jarine did not play. So yeah, not as many to talk about today. It meant that guys like Will Hoare, the VFL listed guys, could stand up, and I thought he was great. But yeah, there were some great AFL performances as well. Surely some players are getting close to coming back in the team or making a debut. There's a bit to talk about despite there only being 7 players to talk about, so let's get into it. Elijah Tsatas, he had a really big game. I thought there were some sketchy moments. It wasn't perfect, but I did start to feel like his impact was showing more, than just numbers. 37 touches. I feel like he gets around that figure most weeks. He averages over 30, I think, like 33 maybe. But it really did feel like he was having a big game at times, which is good. He was always a constant at the contest. 10 clearances, 5 tackles, 12 contested possessions. But there were times where, yeah, he just looked more complete than he has for most of the time he's spent with Essendon. I'd say he was definitely one of the better players, which is good. He was just getting it going for us, I think, through the middle. There were still some moments which we'd like to see less of. That's unfortunately just going to be a constant factor in the back of our minds until we see these games patched together more consistently. The more damaging games. But yeah, good signs. That is better than what we've been seeing the last few weeks. Still not 100% there yet, but it is improvement. He was playing well. He was one of our better players. So yeah, good stuff. And realistically, I think before the year ends, it just makes sense to give him a crack in the AFL. I know, we don't know if he's part of our future. We don't even know if he's going to be with us next year, but he is contracted. So if we give him a go, see if, something just clicks while he's at AFL level and if he can settle in there, then yeah, who knows? I think he probably deserves a chance before the year ends. Dylan Shiel, I thought he was really good. Unfortunately, though, what even happens with Dylan Shiel from here? I mean, he wasn't picked for that Fremantle game. I thought that if he was going to be picked for any game, it would be that. Instead, Hobbs gets to go instead of him. And that, from that moment when they have that conversation with him, letting him know he's not in the team, he's going to be playing VFL again, and then, you got to think about Durham coming back and other players coming back. What does he do now? He knows that he's probably not going to find his way back into the side. I think the coaches know that too. There are just going to be players that we play instead of him. He's probably going to play the rest of the season in the VFL, you'd think. You got to feel bad, but also I feel like we got to give him a bit of a love because, he's continuing to have a crack for us in the reserve. He's playing good footy. He's, having a big say on the game in the midfield. He's probably not going to be on our list next year. I think we all know that. But, 30 touches, 14 contested, still went at around 80%. I thought he was really good. He had a good game. But yeah, he's probably not going to find his way back into the team the week after next when Durham returns. Jye Menzie. So him and the next guy I'll talk about, Alwyn Davey, I'll just say who it is. They both really got our forward half pressure going in that second quarter. We have to give them a bit of a shout out. I thought Menzie in particular was the guy who really helped us get control of the game. And that's the funny thing, because by the end, he wasn't really a huge factor at all. He wasn't close to being best on ground material. But yeah, some of his efforts in that second quarter, he was involved in the first few scores. He sold Candy to get a hand pass to Jared Eckersley, who missed a shot. And then a few minutes later, he crumbs the pack and dishes out to Sellers, who scores. Then the third was a tackle inside 50 that I think he forced a turnover in. His tackling pressure was awesome. 2 inside 50 in the first 2 quarters, 4 overall at halftime. He had 8 touches by halftime and 4 tackles. But then by the end of the game, he finishes with 9 touches and 5 tackles. So he has 1 tackle, 1 touch in the second half. And I know it's not all about disposals, but you did feel like that effort, or not effort, but that impact was just not really in the game anymore. It went from a really important game to a not really pretty poor one. And that's the issue with Menzie. That sums him up perfectly to me. At his best, he is more than a capable forward. We saw him in gather round. He was one of our better players that night in the AFL. But yeah, he just can't round out that form and remain a consistent pressure forward. And I'd love him on our list for the future if he was a consistent player because, I thought he was really good to start the year. I didn't call him Jye Menzie as a joke. Like, I genuinely thought he was having a huge impact from his limited disposal games. But yeah, now it's hard to know if he'll even stay on our list. You just want to see him play consistent footy, but I don't know. Don't know if we will. Interesting few weeks coming up for him because, it feels like this game was just a big missed opportunity. Alwyn Davey Jnr, really quiet early, but as I said before, he really lifted in that second quarter with Jye Menzie. There was some importance in his game along with Menzie. He only ends with 11 disposals, but some of them were massive. And that rundown tackle inside 50 in the third quarter that he got a goal from, that was huge. Like that, I think, that got us back to within a goal or two in the game, and it was just a big moment. Probably one of the biggest moments of the game for the Bombers. Yeah, he had some great pressure-based moments, just didn't quite manage to properly take control of the game and be one of the big impactors throughout. But he had some really good moments and really important moments too. So now what we need is him to take confidence from, those moments and build some good form from them and make these, these big moments that we're talking about more regular occurrences. But yeah, I mean, it's a start. Rhys Unwin, a few big days for Unwin online because he was being talked about a lot before the Freo game. There was a late rumour that he was potentially a very late inclusion for that game in the AFL, which, would have made it our 12th debut. That wasn't the case. But yeah, he did travel up to Perth. He flew back, involved in this game too. So, and that can always be difficult for a younger player to navigate, that mental shift. From I guess the time that he had, the experience of an AFL pre-game warm-up and everything. You're warming up for a game, then you don't play, then you play the next day or the day after that. In the end, he was pretty quiet. I don't think that's an excuse or anything, by the way. I just thought I'd add that in there. But he was pretty quiet, 11 disposals, most hand passes, wasn't wearing the long sleeves. Maybe that's why he was a tiny bit quiet. But no, he did some nice things, had some nice moments. And I think the talk of an AFL debut is probably going to continue to stick around because people want debutants. I think I've already seen people say that Unwin should come in the side for Jade Gresham, but I think this one's probably a bit further away. I'm more thinking about Smart, who didn't play, or Davey, who will be wanting to build that strong form instead of a Rhys Unwin debut, because he's contracted till next season anyway. We don't really need to see him debut. Like, there's nothing that he's really playing for, and I think he's shown enough for me to be excited about next year when he has a preseason under the belt, because he's still very skinny. Archer Day-Wicks was playing quite a bit of midfield time, so he was really prominent, probably like halfway through that first quarter. I thought he was slow to get involved. He was finding his footing in there, but by half-time, he had 10 touches after a slow start in the first. Yeah, I thought he was really involved in the first half. He was linking up, lots of contested possessions on ground level, even moments inside 50 where he was a threat for a second or two. Never quite managed that end result. Sometimes it was a snap that was smothered or something. And there were a few rush of blood to the head moments, a few costly turnovers. And while we're continuing on negatives, he did fade a bit as the game went on, just the 4 touches after half-time, and he was moved out of that midfield a bit more. But no, at one stage of the game, I was thinking it was set to be a really, big and mature game from him, and a response to getting dropped, which, it's not a negative that it didn't happen. Like, the guy is still learning his midfield craft as a rookie draftee. But no, I've really liked what I've seen from Day-Wicks this year. I don't know if he forces his way back into the AFL side before the year ends, and I don't think he needs to. But I reckon we will start to see that AFL experience show through in some VFL performances, because I thought it would be the case in this game. I thought he was looking, better than he did when he left the VFL to join the AFL side, before he was in that extended run of games for the AFL side. But yeah, just didn't quite, manage to finish off his game. And maybe, that late knock that he had that put him in the spotlight played in his mind a bit. I missed it live, so I only saw the one angle which looked bad, but according to some of you guys online, I did post about it. It seems like it wasn't as bad as it initially looked. He had a late bump on a Frankston player that was, a 15-metre penalty or something. It looked honestly worthy of a suspension from the angle that I saw, but apparently that's not the case. So nothing to worry about, ? I don't know. We'll find out by the time this video is out anyway. Jye McMahon had a massive night. And the great thing is, right, he had a massive night. He was, one of our best players, arguably our best, but he had an absolute stinker to start. And not just a stinker because he was quiet. I thought his first quarter he had 0 touches, but it's because the ball was barely down his way. We had 2 inside 50s. But then, the second quarter starts. He drops an uncontested mark on the edge of 50. And then a few minutes later, he gets a bit of a lucky free kick and absolutely shanks the set shot. It is a horrible shank. It didn't even go out on the full. It was that bad a shank. It bounced before going out. And I was fully ready to be on stinker watch, but he turned it around. He was nowhere in the first and early in the second, but by the end of the game, he's kicked 5 goals. He's had some massive moments inside 50. He really shifted the game for us. And it was a really resilient performance from McMahon. I guess, we probably haven't seen enough of that, us Essendon fans, because he's only been with us for a few weeks. But I feel like that performance really personified Essendon's performance a bit. He was absolutely nowhere early, and then the rest of the game, there is just energy and skill. Even some of his moments that weren't quite moments. Like, I think in the third quarter, there was a one-handed contest which he dropped, but where he got it to ground ended up giving us the advantage in the moment, and we kicked a goal from it. So yeah, he was great in the end. And now that means, with those 5 goals, it means that he's now equal our leading goal scorer in the VFL. I'm fairly sure, that is crazy. He's played 4 games, and I think, now correct me if I'm wrong here, because this one I haven't even looked, but he might also be Carlton's leading goal scorer, I think. Because, when he left Carlton, he was pretty far ahead on the tally. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but that would be pretty cool if he's leading 2 teams' goal-kicking tallies. I think he's equal ours with Jared Eckersley from just 4 games. But that is that. Some really strong performances from our AFL boys. Elijah Tsatas, Dylan Shiel, Liam McMahon. There was some great footy being played from some of our guys. Thankfully, the next time I do one of these videos, we'll have more players to talk about, because we're getting about 6 or 7 more players available for our next VFL game, touch wood, obviously in case there's injuries. But yeah, we'll be talking about many more next time, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's all. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and go Bombers.